News Talk 790 WAEB. Hello.
Gunther.
Hey, Pat. I was
here.
Good. I was hoping you could call me. I wasn't sure we were on the same page. I never got heard from your guys. So good. I'm glad you could be on with me for a few minutes here this morning. So, what do we want to talk about? Where do we want to go here this morning? What's on your mind?
Well, one of the things I would like to talk about is the ongoing bailouts that are happening quietly.
GMAC.
Friday afternoons and Christmas Eve, and it just isn't ending, Gunther. It's not even slowing down.
Nope. And I saw that when I came back into work. I'm like, what's this about GMAC? Why don't you talk to me about that? What's going on? Tell us about that and make us aware. Make us all more aware of it.
Well, this is, I suppose we shouldn't be terribly surprised. Once they go down this road, of course, there's demands for forevermore. About $16 billion worth of taxpayers into GMAC subsidies. Turns out it's not enough. And so they quietly announce, a week or so ago that they're gonna pump in another $3.8 billion of taxpayer money. But let me just be clear. This is chump change compared to what they did on Christmas Eve with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Did you notice that?
No. What did they do with Fannie and Freddie?
Well, and that was part of the idea, is that people wouldn't notice this. Taxpayers have kicked in a combined between Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac something on the order of $200 billion. Wow. At least that's the cap. As they're closing in on this figure, the Treasury raised the potential for total taxpayer investment in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to $400 billion, Gunther, not million, billion. On Christmas Eve, they decided to lift the cap altogether. No cap. So there's now an unlimited, endless potential liability commitment on the part of the taxpayers to just continue to funnel money into Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. This is a conscious decision to prevent them from going into receivership, in which case they would be wound down. Instead, they have a different status that's called conservatorship. They can only maintain that status as long as they have a certain adequate amount of finances. Well, at the rate they're losing money, the only way they can maintain that criteria is if we keep pouring more money in.
No,
that's exactly what's happening.
And so we're giving money to Freddie and Fannie, which are private companies, right?
Well, they used to be, Gunther. We basically own them now, but we haven't fundamentally changed anything about them. They're still enormous, except now they're operating under government dictates, among other things, forcing them to lose money. One of the things that the government is forcing them to do is to modify all kinds of mortgages. This is costing them billions of dollars in additional losses every quarter, and that's completely unsustainable for standalone companies, and that's part of why the Treasury has to keep pumping money into these monsters. That's what they are. It's fascinating. You might ask yourself, well, how about the senior management? How are they affected by this? They're exempted from the restrictions on pay that come, that the pays are.
Now, isn't that amazing that we're having this big hullabaloo and Powell and Barack Obama protesting about the banks and other companies that by the way, that have paid the money back so they could get the big salaries and benefits. Right. They paid the money back.
So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have a combined $24 billion in losses last quarter, and their two top executives receive $6 million annually, up to $6 million annually. It's just unbelievable. They're basically not in the business of making profits anymore. The government is now using Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac as a massive vehicle for a huge subsidy of the mortgage industry. That's what's happening. To the tune of hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars. My point, Gunther, is the bailouts aren't ending. They're continuing. This is very, very disturbing.
And what do we do about it?
We need to win some elections, Gunther.
Yeah.
I think we need to keep as much pressure as we can on elected officials. But I'm afraid that the Democratic Party has been captured by the left wing of that party, and their mindset is we use this opportunity to grow government massively. We're going to raise taxes. We're going to increase spending. We're going to nationalize health care. We're going to do all the things that they have long wanted to do, including nationalize parts of our financial services industry, which they have done. I mean, the federal government is the domestic residential mortgage industry in America. there is not really a private. There's some segments of it, like mortgage origination. Something like 90% of all residential mortgages are originated, then sold to either Fannie or Freddie, which, as we've just discussed, are completely creatures of the federal government.
They're privately held, though.
Well, yes, but the federal government has a huge stake in preferred stock, on which, by the way, Fannie and Freddie can't pay the dividends they're supposed to pay. It's a disaster, Gunther.
And we're paying for it all, folks. We're paying for it all. I don't know how much longer this can go on. It is. I really don't know how much longer this can go on. I don't even know if we can wait till another year from now. There's been so much damage done in 1 year. And yes, some of it was done under the Bush administration as well. But I got news for you. When George Bush had 5% unemployment, they were screaming it's terrible, it's the economy. Now we've got 10% unemployment. I think it's even higher than that. Then there's the underemployed. They say the number of people that applied for unemployment went down, so that's a good sign. But if still more new people applied for unemployment, the number shouldn't be 10. It should have gone up, the total number of people, right?
Well, a lot of people became discouraged and have given up searching for work, and so they are no longer counted as unemployed. So you can get some real quirks in the statistics. But just back to spending for 1 second, because, I was very critical of excessive spending in the Bush administration.
Yeah.
I voted against the huge expansion of Medicare that was unfunded and I thought unsustainable. The Bush administration in the last year, 2008, ran a budget deficit of $469 billion, which I thought was too big, and I criticized the spending that got us there. $469 billion, Gunther. Last year it was $1.4 trillion. It's on track to be $1.3 trillion this coming year. This is not sustainable. There is not enough money in the world to keep borrowing at this pace. And even if there were, Gunther, how outrageous is it to impose this kind of crushing debt load on our kids? It's just completely unacceptable. We've got to get this under control.
All right, Pat Toomey for Senate.com. If you want to know more about Pat's campaign to unseat Arlen Specter, Pat Toomey for Senate. Is it actually Toomey for Senate.com? Right?
Toomey for Senate.com.
Yeah,
that's right.
Toomey for Senate.com. Pat Toomey, my guest. Thank you, Pat. Appreciate the call in.
Thanks, Gunther.
Have a good one. News Talk 790 WAEB.